The unexpected encounter. Late one cold, starry evening, a figure known for changing the world with his bold ideas and innovations found himself on a quiet, desolate stretch of highway. Elon Musk, ever the visionary, was in a reflective mood as he passed through a nearly empty parking lot, deep in thought about the future. His Tesla roared through the still night air, cutting through the silence like a jagged thought. Despite his many accomplishments and the billion-dollar empire he had built, there was something he couldn't shake, a feeling that he had been missing something important, something raw and human. As his car slowed down, his headlights flickered over a figure in the distance. There, nestled between a row of old, abandoned vehicles, was a beat-up old car, parked under a single dim light. The windows were foggy, the body of the vehicle dented in several places. As he drew nearer, something about the scene caught his attention. There was a woman, alone in the vehicle, her face obscured in the shadow of her car's interior. He could see the faint outline of her body slouched, her head resting against the seat, as though she had given up. Elon slowed to a stop, his curiosity piqued. With all his wealth and success, he was no stranger to luxury. But the sight of this woman, her worn-out car serving as her makeshift home, stirred something deep within him. It wasn't just the obvious hardship he saw, but the weariness etched on her face. The sense of defeat, of a person who had once dreamed big, but whose aspirations had been crushed by life's harshness. Without thinking too much, Elon pulled up beside the car, got out of his vehicle, and approached the woman's window. He knocked gently. She stirred, her eyes blinking in confusion as the knock broke the silence of the night. She squinted at the unfamiliar face standing outside, a man who seemed out of place in this forgotten corner of the parking lot. "Are you okay?" Elon asked, his voice soft, but with an undercurrent of genuine concern. The woman hesitated for a moment, as if unsure of how to respond. The car smelled faintly of fast food wrappers and stale air. Her clothes were tattered, and the exhaustion on her face spoke volumes. Her life had clearly not been kind, but there was something in her eyes, a spark, a glimmer of hope that had not been completely extinguished. "I'm fine," she said with a forced smile, trying to cover the weariness in her voice. Just trying to sleep." Elon looked at her for a moment, taking in the reality of her situation. He knew that the homeless lived in every city, often invisible to those who passed by. But this woman's presence, her story, seemed different. He had seen the faces of people defeated by life, but rarely did he see someone still holding on so fiercely, clinging to the smallest thread of hope. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Jada," she replied, still unsure of this stranger's intentions. "Elon," he said with a smile, offering his hand. Jada hesitated before reaching out to shake it, still not sure if this was some sort of dream or a cruel joke. Elon squatted down, leaning closer to the window, and continued, "I know this might sound strange, but I couldn't help but notice. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" Jada paused. She had heard the empty promises of people before, well-meaning individuals who claimed they wanted to help, only to walk away after a few moments. But something about Elon's words felt different. There was no judgment in his eyes, no pity, just an earnest curiosity. She could sense that this was not just another encounter that would vanish as quickly as it appeared. I don't know," she said, her voice cracking slightly. She wiped a tear that had escaped despite her best efforts. "I'm just trying to survive." Elon felt a lump form in his throat. He had faced his own challenges in life, struggled with failures, long nights of doubt, and fears that kept him awake at times. But nothing had prepared him for the rawness of Jada's situation. He felt an undeniable urge to do something, to offer her more than just empty words. "What happened?" he asked softly, the curiosity in his tone deeper than before. Jada glanced down at her hands, fidgeting. She had never told anyone her story in full, perhaps because it hurt too much, perhaps because it had become too long and convoluted to share. "I used to have it all," she began, her voice shaky at first, but growing steadier as she spoke. "I had a scholarship to a prestigious university, studied electrical engineering. I was passionate, determined. I thought I could change the world. But then, everything fell apart. One wrong decision, one unexpected turn, and I lost everything. My parents, they tried to help, but it just wasn't enough. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't find a place to stay. So, I ended up here." She gestured to the car around her. "The car became my home. It's not much, but it's mine." She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Elon listened intently, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. He could sense that there was so much more to her story, more pain and struggle she hadn't shared, but it wasn't necessary to know every detail. What mattered was the person in front of him, the woman who still had a fire inside, despite everything life had thrown at her. "Jada," he said slowly, "I want to help you." She looked at him, eyes wide in disbelief. "Help me?" She shook her head. "How? You don't even know me." "I don't need to know everything," he replied with a quiet certainty. "But I do know this. You deserve better than this. You deserve a chance. And I'm willing to give you one." Jada's eyes filled with tears as she stared at him. This wasn't the first time someone had offered help, but there was something about Elon's words that resonated deeply within her. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't invisible. She wasn't just another face in the crowd, forgotten and left behind. Elon extended his hand again. "You don't have to do this alone. Come with me. I can't promise you everything, but I can promise you a chance to rebuild." Jada took a long, shaky breath, weighing her options. She had nothing left to lose, but she couldn't help but feel a sliver of hope stirring inside her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance she had been waiting for. She took his hand, and in that moment, everything began to change. A new beginning. Jada had always been a dreamer. Growing up in a small town, she had always seen herself doing something big, something extraordinary. She would spend hours with her father, Henry, watching him work in his workshop, his hands moving with the kind of care that only comes with decades of experience. He wasn't just fixing things, he was giving them a new life, a second chance. It was a principle that stuck with Jada long after she left for college, and it became a part of her, guiding her through some of the most difficult times in her life. But here she was now, her dreams shattered, her future uncertain. The scholarship that had once seemed like a golden ticket to success had turned into an anchor, dragging her down when the unexpected storm of life hit. She had struggled to hold on, but now, in the dim glow of her car's headlights, she felt like she was drowning in the weight of her own failure. When Elon Musk offered her that hand, the one that promised not just kindness, but a chance to rebuild, it was as if the clouds that had hung over her for so long were finally beginning to break apart. She had spent so much time trying to survive, to get by, that she had forgotten what it meant to truly live, to have someone believe in her when she had long given up on believing in herself. Jada's decision to leave the parking lot with Elon felt surreal. She stepped out of her car slowly, almost in disbelief. The air was cool against her skin, and the night sky seemed to shimmer in a way it hadn't in years. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Elon didn't waste any time. He led her to his car, a sleek, futuristic vehicle that seemed to hum with energy. As they drove through the quiet streets, he didn't press her for more details. There was no rush to fix everything in one night. Instead, he simply spoke with her, gently asking about her past, her dreams, and her struggles. Jada found herself speaking more than she had in years, telling him about her childhood, her family, and the relentless pursuit of her education. She spoke of the hope that had once burned so brightly inside her and how it had slowly been extinguished by life's harshness. But with Elon, it was different. There was no judgment, no pity, just a genuine interest in her story. "I didn't expect to meet anyone like you tonight," Jada said, her voice quiet but steady as they drove through the city streets. "I mean, you're Elon Musk, The guy who created Tesla and SpaceX. You've done so much, and here I am, a mess in a broken car." Elon chuckled softly. "Don't sell yourself short, Jada. People don't become successful by accident. Everyone has their own battles. I've had mine too. But the key is to never give up. That's what separates the dreamers from the doers." Jada looked at him, unsure of how to respond. She had always been a door, at least she used to be. But now, all she felt was exhaustion and doubt. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been through so much, and I feel like I've lost my way." "You're not lost," Elon said, his tone calm but firm. "You're just in a place right now where you need to find your next step. And that's okay. You don't have to have all the answers today, but I can help you find them. You have the talent, the intelligence, and the drive. What you need now is the right opportunity." For the first time in a long while, Jada felt a spark of something deep inside her, a flicker of hope. It was faint, but it was there. She knew it wouldn't be easy, that the road ahead would be long and full of challenges. But maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as broken as she had thought. When they reached Elon's office, he took her inside, offering her a seat in a modern, minimalist lounge area. The building was sleek, impressive, a far cry from the dim parking lot where they had met. But what struck Jada the most was the calmness with which Elon operated. There were no extravagant displays of wealth, no sense of superiority. He didn't need to prove anything. He simply offered what he could, a chance for something better. "This is where the magic happens," Elon said, gesturing to the large windows that offered a sweeping view of the city. "I want you to feel comfortable here, Jada. Whatever you need, time, space, guidance, it's yours. But first, let me tell you a bit about what we're doing." He sat across from her, speaking with a quiet intensity as he explained the various projects he was involved in. Everything from clean energy to space exploration. Jada listened intently, her eyes lighting up as she began to see the connections between his work and her own education. "You've always had the skills," Elon continued. "You just need a place to apply them. I think you're capable of much more than you realize." Elon's words struck a chord with Jada. She had spent so much of her life trying to fit into a mold that didn't belong to her, trying to meet expectations that were never her own. She had always been passionate about engineering, about creating something that could change the world. But over the years that fire had dimmed, and now, in the quiet of Elon's office, it began to burn brighter once again. "I don't know where to start," Jada said, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "I've been out of the game for so long. It feels like everyone else is way ahead of me." "You have one thing most people don't," Elon said, leaning forward. "You have a story. You've been through something real, something that most people can't even imagine. That's a perspective you can't get from books or classrooms, and it's something that will serve you in ways you can't yet see." Jada looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. She had spent so much of her life looking at the world from the outside, feeling like an observer rather than a participant. But now, for the first time in years, she felt like she was ready to step back in, to become part of something bigger, to build something meaningful. It wasn't going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But for the first time in a long time, Jada Harper felt like she had a chance to rebuild, to reclaim her life, and to make a difference. And that was more than she had ever hoped for when she had parked her car in that empty lot. Elon smiled at her, sensing the shift in her energy. "I think we're just getting started." Jada smiled back, a small but powerful gesture. "I think you're right." And with that, the first chapter of her new life began to unfold. A journey of transformation. The following morning, Jada woke up in an unfamiliar bed, surrounded by the soft hum of a quiet, high-rise apartment. The night had passed in a blur, a dreamlike state where the weight of her old life seemed to lift, even if only for a moment. She stretched, feeling the cool sheets beneath her, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, she allowed herself to take a deep breath, one that wasn't tinged with fear or uncertainty. Elon had been true to his word. After the long, reflective conversation in his office, he had offered her a place to stay, a luxurious, yet serene apartment overlooking the city. It was a far cry from the cramped, broken-down car she had slept in just hours before. There was a gentle quiet here, a sense of possibility in the air, as though anything was possible. Jada didn't yet know what that anything would be, but she was starting to believe that the future could hold more than just struggle. She made her way to the bathroom, catching a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror. Her face had changed over the past few months, not just the weariness of life, but the quiet resignation that had taken root in her eyes. Now she saw a glimmer of someone who was ready to rise again. It was a small shift, but a shift nonetheless. As she stepped into the shower, the warm water seemed to wash away more than just the dirt of the day. It felt like it was cleansing her from the inside out, washing away the years of feeling invisible, discarded. She felt alive, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. There was a fire inside her now, ignited by Elon's belief in her. It wasn't something that could be extinguished easily. When she finished, she dressed in the clothes Elon had provided. Simple but elegant attire. She had never imagined wearing such clothes, let alone being offered them by someone like him. But the clothes felt different now. They weren't just a symbol of her new life. They were a reminder of what she was capable of, what she could achieve. As she walked into the kitchen, Elon was already there, sitting at a counter with a steaming mug of coffee. He looked up when she entered, his eyes warm and welcoming. "Good morning, Jada." He greeted her with a genuine smile. "I hope you slept well." "I did," she replied, her voice softer than usual. "It's strange, but I feel different. Lighter, somehow." "Good," Elon said, taking a sip of his coffee. "That's the first step. Let's keep this momentum going." For the next several hours, Elon introduced Jada to his world, the world that had once felt so far removed from her own. He showed her his workspace, an environment filled with innovation, cutting-edge technology, and a sense of purpose that seemed to radiate from every corner. Elon wasn't just a businessman. He was someone driven by a deep sense of possibility, someone who truly believed that the world could be better if people were willing to challenge the status quo. "This is what I do," Elon explained as he led her through his office. "I build things. I create solutions to problems that seem impossible. And I've always believed that no idea is too big, no dream too far out of reach. If you can think it, you can build it." Jada listened intently, absorbing every word. She had always loved problem-solving, finding creative solutions to complex challenges. But seeing Elon's world in action, the systems, the people, the projects, was something else entirely. This wasn't just about making money or creating technology for technology's sake. This was about making a real impact, changing lives, changing the world. Elon paused in front of a large display screen, pointing to a project that was in the early stages. "This is something I'm particularly excited about," he said. "We're developing a new clean energy solution, one that could potentially revolutionize how we think about power. We're not just looking at alternative energy. We're looking at the future of energy itself." Jada's heart quickened. She had studied electrical engineering, of course, but she had never seen anything like this before. The technology was mind-boggling, yet it felt entirely within reach. It was like watching a dream take shape in real time, something that could alter the very course of history. "I want you to be part of this," Elon continued, turning to face her. "Not just as a spectator, but as someone who can contribute, who can make a difference. I believe you have the talent for it." Jada felt a lump form in her throat. For so long, she had been told that her dreams were too big, too unrealistic. People had doubted her, dismissed her as someone who didn't belong in the world of engineering, the world of innovation. But here she was, sitting across from one of the most influential figures in technology, being offered a chance to work on something that could change the world. She didn't know how to respond at first. Part of her wanted to pinch herself to see if she was really awake, if this was all just some grand dream. But another part of her, the part that had been slowly rekindled by Elon's belief in her, knew that this was real. This was her moment. "Are you sure?" Jada asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't worked in months. I've been out of the loop. I don't know if I can catch up." Elon smiled gently. "You're not starting from scratch, Jada. You're starting from experience. And that's all we need. What you've been through has shaped you. It's given you a perspective that most people don't have. That's a gift, not a burden." Jada exhaled slowly, taking in his words. For the first time in so long, she felt like she was worthy of something. She wasn't just a survivor of life's cruelties. She was a person with skills, with dreams that had the potential to be realized. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady now. "I'm ready to be part of this." And just like that, her journey began to shift. She wasn't just a woman who had been homeless, a woman who had struggled and failed. She was Jada Harper, an engineer with a vision, a woman who had been given a second chance, not just by Elon Musk, but by herself. Over the next few weeks, Jada's life began to transform in ways she could never have imagined. With Elon's guidance, she joined the Clean Energy Project, contributing her knowledge and ideas to help design a sustainable energy solution that could impact communities all over the world. The work was challenging, but it was also deeply rewarding. For the first time, she felt like she was truly making a difference. But it wasn't just the work that was changing her. It was the sense of belonging, the feeling of being seen, of being valued for who she was, not for the mistakes of her past. Elon had given her more than just an opportunity. He had given her a belief in herself that had been buried for so long. As the days passed, Jada found herself growing more confident, more focused. She spent long hours at the office, immersing herself in the work, but she also made time to reflect. Every success, no matter how small, was a victory. She was no longer just surviving. She was living, truly living. One evening, after a particularly grueling meeting, Elon pulled Jada aside as the sun dipped below the horizon. He looked at her with a sense of quiet pride. "You're doing amazing work," he said, his tone genuine. "But I think you're ready for more." Jada smiled, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her. "What do you mean?" "I think it's time for you to start your own project," Elon said. "You've proven yourself. You're more than just a part of my team. You're ready to lead." For the first time in her life, Jada realized that her journey wasn't just about proving others wrong. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever believed. And with that, she was ready to take the next step. The unlikely leader. The days following Elon's conversation with Jada were a blur of activity, innovation, and self-discovery. Jada had spent her life in survival mode, never truly stopping to question the path she was on, always focused on what was next. But now, for the first time, she was in a position to decide what she wanted, not just what was handed to her. As she delved deeper into the Clean Energy Project, something inside her clicked. She wasn't just solving problems or contributing ideas. She was creating a vision, one that aligned with her own beliefs. The more she worked, the clearer it became that this was more than just a job. This was a calling. Elon had been right. She was ready for more. And so, as the weeks rolled by, Jada found herself spending more time thinking about the bigger picture. She didn't just want to be another cog in the machine. She wanted to build something of her own. She wanted to take the opportunities she had been given and turn them into something that could change lives. One afternoon, Elon invited her to a meeting with the senior leadership team. They were discussing an upcoming project that involved developing a renewable energy system for a low-income community. Elon knew that Jada had the expertise to contribute, but what he didn't know was how much she would transform the conversation. As the meeting progressed, Jada listened intently, her mind racing as she absorbed the details of the project. The idea was noble, but there was something missing. Something that could elevate it from a mere solution to a game-changer. She had seen firsthand how resource-poor communities were often overlooked, their needs dismissed by corporations and governments alike. She knew there had to be a way to do more than just provide energy. The solution had to be sustainable, it had to empower, and it had to last. Without thinking twice, Jada spoke up. "What if," she began, her voice firm, "we don't just focus on providing energy? What if we also create jobs in these communities, train people to maintain the technology, and give them the tools to manage it themselves?" The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her, surprised by the audacity of her suggestion. Elon raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "That's an interesting thought," Elon said, leaning forward in his seat. "What do you have in mind?" Jada took a deep breath. "We don't just want to hand out technology. We want to give these people the skills to use it for themselves, to make their community self-sufficient. We could set up workshops, provide technical training, and help them establish local leadership within the community to manage the system. This way, we're not just offering a temporary solution, we're building a sustainable future." There was a pause, but then one of the senior leaders nodded slowly. "I see what you mean. You're suggesting we shift the focus from just energy to empowerment." Jada smiled, sensing the momentum building. "Exactly. Energy isn't just about providing power. It's about providing opportunities. And if we can give people the tools to create their own success, we'll be making a much bigger impact." Elon turned to face the team, his expression one of quiet admiration. "I think Jada's onto something. We've always been focused on innovation, but this takes it a step further. It's about transforming lives, not just providing resources." For the rest of the meeting, Jada was engaged, contributing ideas, pushing boundaries, and challenging assumptions. By the end of the discussion, the team had agreed to revise the project's approach. The goal was no longer just about bringing renewable energy to a low-income community. It was about creating a model for sustainability that could be replicated across the country. It was about giving people a way to break free from poverty, not just survive it. As the meeting adjourned, Elon approached Jada with a proud smile. "That was impressive," he said. "I think you just reshaped the entire project." Jada felt a mix of emotions: pride, gratitude, and, most of all, disbelief. Just a few months ago, she had been living in her car, struggling to make ends meet. And now she was sitting at the table with some of the brightest minds in the industry, shaping the future of energy and community development. But as she left the meeting room, something inside her shifted again. She had been given the opportunity to be a part of something big, something that would make a real difference in the world. But what if that wasn't enough? What if she could do more? What if she could lead the way? The thought of leadership had always felt foreign to Jada. She had never seen herself as the type of person to command a room, let alone a project. But now, as she walked down the hallway, the idea began to take root in her mind. She had the skills, the knowledge, and the passion to make a difference. But more than that, she had the experience of overcoming adversity. She had fought to survive. And now she had a chance to lead others toward a better life. The following days were a whirlwind. Jada spent long hours working on the project, coordinating with engineers, community leaders, and local organizations to ensure that the new approach was both feasible and impactful. Elon continued to mentor her, but he also gave her the space to grow on her own, allowing her to take the reins of certain aspects of the project. Slowly but surely, Jada began to build her own vision of leadership, not one based on titles or authority, but one rooted in empathy, collaboration, and empowerment. One evening, as Jada sat in her new office, reviewing the latest drafts of the project proposal, she received a call from Elon. "Jada, I need you to come to my office," he said, his tone unusually serious. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her heart racing with anticipation. "Just come," Elon replied. "You'll see." When Jada arrived, she was met by Elon and a few members of the leadership team. There was a sense of excitement in the air, but also a quiet tension. Elon turned to face her with a smile. "We've been talking, and we've decided that we want you to lead this project." Jada's eyes widened. "Lead it," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Elon said, nodding. "We think you have the vision and the drive to take this to the next level. You've already shown us what you're capable of, and we believe you're ready for this. We want you to be the one to take this project forward and lead the team." Jada felt the weight of the moment settle in. She had been given the opportunity of a lifetime, the chance to lead something meaningful, something that could change lives. But the pressure of the responsibility also settled on her shoulders, and she couldn't help but feel a surge of doubt. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she said quietly. "I've never led anything like this before." Elon placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've led yourself through the toughest battles. You've already proven you can rise above adversity. This is just the next step. We're here to support you, but we believe in you." Jada took a deep breath. This was it. This was the moment she had been preparing for without even knowing it. She had fought for this, clawed her way through the darkness, and now she was ready to step into the light. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady with newfound determination. "I'll lead it." And just like that, Jada Harper, the woman who had once slept in her car, became the leader of a revolutionary project that would change the way the world looked at energy, empowerment, and opportunity. It was a responsibility she would carry with pride, knowing that her journey had just begun, and that this time she would not only survive, but thrive. Facing challenges and rising stronger, the weeks that followed were a blur of activity, innovation, and deep reflection. Jada found herself at the helm of the renewable energy project, guiding it from a mere concept to a fully realized initiative. The work was demanding, often exhausting, but each step forward brought with it a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. This wasn't just about energy or technology. It was about something far more important. It was about people, about giving them the tools and resources they needed to change their lives. But despite the success, Jada found herself facing new challenges that tested both her abilities and her resolve. The pressure to succeed was immense. Elon had given her the leadership role, believing in her potential to make a lasting impact, but she didn't want to disappoint him or herself. For the first time in years, Jada felt like she had something to prove. The old doubts that had been buried deep inside her slowly began to resurface. Could she really handle this responsibility? Was she enough? The first major hurdle came when they faced unexpected resistance from local governments. Despite the positive response from the communities they were working with, there were powerful figures who saw the project as a threat to their established systems. The idea of local communities having control over their own energy resources didn't sit well with the larger corporations and government officials who stood to lose financially from the disruption of their monopolies. One particularly tense meeting with a local council left Jada feeling defeated. The room was filled with skeptical faces, some outright dismissive of the project. They questioned the feasibility of a community-driven model and scoffed at the idea of providing technical training for people who had no prior experience in energy systems. "We've been doing things a certain way for years," one council member said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You're not going to change that with a few workshops and some technology. People don't just wake up and become experts." Jada could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her, her confidence faltering for the first time since she had taken the lead. Her mind raced, and for a moment, she was paralyzed by self-doubt. She had come so far, but could she really convince these people who had the power to stop the project, that what she was proposing could work? But then she remembered something that Elon had told her during one of their many conversations. Leadership isn't about being perfect, Jada. It's about being able to move forward, even when you don't have all the answers. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to believe in what you're doing, and that belief will carry you through. The words rang in her ears as she took a deep breath, her gaze steady as she stood up. The room fell silent as she looked each council member in the eye, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "I understand your skepticism," she began, her voice gaining strength with each word. "But what we're proposing isn't just another project. This is a chance to change the way we think about energy, about communities, about sustainability. What we're doing isn't about creating dependency. It's about creating independence. We're not asking for handouts. We're offering a chance for people to take control of their own futures." Jada paused for a moment, letting her words settle. She could feel the eyes of the council members on her, their skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. "I've seen it firsthand," she continued. "I've seen people who have been ignored by the system, people who are treated as invisible, capable of more than they've ever been given the chance to do. This project isn't just about providing clean energy. It's about empowering people to build something that lasts. It's about creating a future where communities don't just survive. They thrive." There was a long silence as the council members exchanged glances. It felt like an eternity to Jada, but eventually, the tension began to break. The skepticism in the room started to shift, replaced by a reluctant respect for her passion and vision. One of the council members, a woman who had remained silent through most of the meeting, spoke up. "I think we've been too quick to dismiss this idea. Maybe we should take another look at it. Maybe we're not seeing the whole picture." Jada felt a surge of relief wash over her. She had done it. She had faced down the opposition, not with anger or defensiveness, but with belief in the project and its potential. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was a step in the right direction. The council agreed to revisit the proposal, and Jada left the meeting feeling more determined than ever to see the project succeed. But the challenges didn't stop there. In the days that followed, Jada faced growing pressure from her team. They were behind the project, yes, but as the pressure mounted, so did the stress. There were days when the weight of responsibility felt unbearable, and she found herself questioning whether she was the right person for the job. She had a vision, but executing it was harder than she had ever anticipated. One evening, after a long day of meetings and endless emails, Jada sat alone in her office, staring at the large screen in front of her. The numbers didn't add up. The timeline was slipping. She could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on her, the anxiety creeping into her chest. The fear of failure gnawed at her, and for the first time in months, she felt like giving up. As she sat there, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Elon. "Don't forget why you started. You've got this." At first, she stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. It felt like such a simple thing, but in that moment, it was exactly what she needed to hear. Elon didn't just see her as a leader in this project. He saw the person she was becoming. His words reminded her of what she had fought for, of the journey she had been on. She had overcome so much already, and this was just another hurdle to clear. With renewed determination, Jada pushed away from her desk and stood up. The project wasn't just a reflection of her. It was a reflection of everyone who had believed in it, in her. She couldn't let them down. She couldn't let herself down. The next day, Jada rallied her team, reminding them of the bigger picture, the purpose behind the work they were doing. She encouraged them to think beyond the obstacles, to focus on the impact they could make. Slowly but surely, the team began to rally around her again. The energy in the office shifted, and with each passing day, the project began to gain momentum once more. By the time they were ready to present the revised proposal to the local council, the project had evolved. It wasn't just about energy anymore. It was about community, about sustainability, about giving people the tools to thrive. The revised proposal was met with enthusiasm, and soon, Jada found herself on the brink of something incredible. It wasn't an easy journey, and it hadn't been without its setbacks. But Jada had learned something invaluable. Leadership wasn't about always having the right answers. It was about facing the challenges head-on, learning from the setbacks, and keeping your vision alive, no matter how difficult the road ahead seemed. As the project moved forward, Jada felt a deep sense of pride in what they had accomplished. The road ahead would still be filled with obstacles, but now she knew she had the strength to overcome them. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a leader, and nothing could take that away from her. The ripple effect of hope. Months had passed since Jada Harper had taken the reins of the renewable energy project, and with each passing day, she found herself more deeply entrenched in the work. The initial excitement had given way to the hard work of execution, but the results were beginning to speak for themselves. Communities were thriving in ways they hadn't before. People who had once been reliant on external forces were now taking ownership of their futures. The change Jada had envisioned, the dream she had poured herself into, was no longer just an idea. It was a living, breathing reality. And yet, with all the success came a new challenge: how to scale this vision and spread it to other parts of the country. The model they had developed was proving to be effective, but Jada knew that if they wanted to make a real lasting impact, they needed to go bigger. The problem was that meant navigating a whole new level of complexity: corporate partnerships, government regulations, international logistics, and the pressure weighed heavily on her. One evening, while working late in her office, Jada received a call from Elon. The exhaustion of the day had begun to take its toll, and she was ready to collapse into bed. But she knew that when Elon called, it was important. She answered the phone, her voice strained but professional. "Hey Jada, how are things going?" "Elon," she sighed, rubbing her eyes. "We've made a lot of progress, but I feel like we're stuck. We've hit a ceiling. It's like every time we take one step forward, we're forced to take 2 steps back because of the systems in place. The bigger players, the ones with the power, they're starting to push back. It's frustrating." Elon was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke with the calm, measured tone Jada had come to rely on. "I understand, but let me remind you of something. We've always been the underdogs. You've always been the underdog. You didn't let that stop you before, and you shouldn't let it stop you now. There's always a way forward if you're willing to fight for it." Jada felt a spark of resolve flicker inside her. "But it's different now. The stakes are higher. There's a lot more on the line." "I know," Elon said, "but here's the thing. You've already built something incredible. You've proven that the model works. Now, it's about persistence. It's about taking the next step, even when it feels like everything is against you. You've always been a problem solver, Jada. This is just another problem to solve." His words resonated deeply with her. It wasn't about giving up. It was about adapting, finding a way to outsmart the barriers, and continuing to push forward, no matter how many obstacles appeared in her path. She had done it before. She could do it again. The next morning, Jada arrived at the office early, her mind buzzing with ideas. There was no time to waste. She needed to rethink the approach. She needed to be smarter, more strategic. As she sat down with her team, she laid out the vision for the next phase of the project: expansion. But this time, they couldn't just rely on traditional methods. They needed to think outside the box. They needed to go directly to the communities, to the grassroots level, and let the people advocate for themselves. "People are tired of being told what they need," Jada explained to her team. "They've been marginalized for too long. What we're doing is empowering them to take control of their future. We need to get them involved in the process, to make them the ones who advocate for the project in their own communities. If we can build a coalition of support, we can push back against the system." It was a bold idea, but it felt right. Jada knew that the real power of this project wasn't just in the technology or the resources. It was in the people. If they could inspire enough communities to stand behind the project, it would be unstoppable. Over the next few weeks, Jada and her team embarked on a series of town hall meetings across the country, gathering communities and spreading the word about the renewable energy initiative. They worked closely with local leaders, engaging directly with the people who stood to benefit the most. At first, there was skepticism. Many people were hesitant, unsure of whether they could trust a new project that promised to disrupt the status quo. But Jada's authenticity, her personal connection to the cause, began to win people over. Her story was their story. She wasn't just a faceless figure behind a corporation. She was someone who had fought for her place, who had faced the same struggles they did, and had risen above them. Slowly, momentum began to build. Word spread, and more communities began to rally behind the initiative. It wasn't just about energy, it was about hope. It was about the possibility of a future that wasn't dictated by corporations and politicians, but by the people themselves. People who had been told they were powerless for so long were finally finding their voice. In one small town in the Midwest, a group of community leaders invited Jada to speak at a public rally. When she arrived, she was greeted by hundreds of people who had gathered to hear her speak. Their faces were full of hope, their eyes alight with a kind of anticipation that she hadn't seen in years. When Jada stepped up to the podium, the crowd fell silent. She took a deep breath, looking out at the sea of faces, and then she spoke. "I know what it feels like to be overlooked. I know what it's like to be told that your dreams are too big, that you're not worth the time. But I also know what it feels like to stand up and fight. I know what it's like to rise when everyone expects you to fall. And I know that each and every one of you has the power to change your community, to change your future. What we're doing isn't just about energy. It's about giving you the tools to create the life you want. It's about giving you the power to be the change." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices raised in unity. It was the sound of a movement taking flight, a movement that was no longer just about Jada. It was about the people who believed in it, about the communities that had been given the chance to rise. From that moment on, the project gained a level of momentum that Jada had never imagined. The local governments, who had once been so skeptical, began to take notice. People were speaking out in support of the initiative. They were rallying behind it, demanding that the change they had been promised be delivered. Jada's leadership was becoming a beacon of hope, not just for the project, but for the communities that were being transformed by it. She had faced setbacks, had doubted herself at times, but she had never given up. And now she was seeing the results of that persistence. She was seeing the ripple effect of hope that was spreading across the country. The work was far from over. There were still challenges to overcome, new obstacles to face. But for the first time, Jada felt like she had the power to face whatever came next. She had already changed her own life. Now she was changing the world. As she looked out at the crowd, Jada felt something stir deep inside her, a sense of pride, yes, but also a deep gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. She had fought for herself, for this project, and for the communities that were now rising alongside her. And in doing so, she had become something more than just a survivor. She had become a leader who was helping to build a future that was brighter, stronger, and more inclusive for everyone. Jada Harper had finally found her place in the world, and it was more powerful than she could have ever imagined.